Tonight we descend, slowly, past the reach of sunlight, past the place where blue becomes black, into one of the quietest, strangest corners of the ocean, to find an animal whose name promises something it never quite delivers. The vampire squid. Even the name arrives with theatre. It conjures darkness and menace, something ancient and predatory moving through deep water with deliberate intent. And, in a sense, the name is honest. This creature does live in the dark, and it is genuinely ancient, carrying a lineage older than most things we have words for. But the drama of its name is a kind of costume. Beneath it lives something altogether different. A small, soft animal moving slowly through water so still and so dim that it barely seems to belong to the same ocean as the surface world above. It is not quite a squid. It is not quite an octopus. It belongs to its own order entirely, the only living member of a branch of cephalopod life that has persisted, largely unchanged, for an extraordinary span of time. It has 8 arms connected by a dark, cloak-like web of skin, 2 filaments it can extend into the water and retract again, and eyes that are, relative to its body, among the largest of any animal alive. It is small enough to hold in 2 hands. It glows in the dark, and it lives in a layer of the ocean where the water holds so little dissolved oxygen that most creatures would simply cease to function, where the sea itself seems, in a way, to have given up on breath. That last fact is the quiet marvel at the center of everything. Not the name, not the webbed arms or the bioluminescent lights scattered across its body. The truly astonishing thing is simply that it is there at all, in water that seems designed to exclude it, and that it has found, through millions of years of quiet persistence, a way to make that impossible place into home. Hello there, and welcome to Deep Sea Slumber. Tonight we'll spend time with this animal in the way it deserves, slowly, without hurry, letting its strangeness become familiar. We'll follow it into the dark water, learn something of how it works and how it lives, and arrive, by the end, at a creature that feels less like a monster and more like a kind of quiet miracle. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, let your shoulders settle. There is nothing that needs holding up tonight. Let your breath slow, just a little. Not forced, not deliberate, simply allowed. We are sinking together, the way something soft sinks through deep water. Without resistance, without effort, carried down by a kind of patient gravity into the blue-black quiet below. Let's begin. Far below the surface, the first surprise is not what this animal looks like, but where it is able to remain with such quiet ease. Most of the ocean's depth is cold and dark, but it is not entirely without oxygen. Water absorbs oxygen at the surface, where waves and wind and photosynthesis keep it circulating. That oxygen travels downwards slowly, carried by currents, dissolved into the water column. But at a certain depth, roughly 200 to 1,000 meters in many parts of the world, something strange happens. The oxygen nearly disappears. This layer is called the oxygen minimum zone. It forms where oxygen is consumed faster than it can be replaced. Bacteria break down sinking organic matter here, using up whatever dissolved oxygen exists, and the water that fills this layer is not refreshed quickly enough to compensate. In some ocean regions, the oxygen minimum zone contains so little dissolved oxygen that most animals cannot survive there at all. Fish avoid it. Many crustaceans avoid it. Even some of the hardier invertebrates cannot stay long. The vampire squid lives there permanently, not passing through, not visiting on the way somewhere else. It has made the oxygen minimum zone its home, its refuge, the layer of water it returns to and remains within. At depths where the oxygen concentration can drop to less than 5% of what surface water holds, this animal drifts, hunts in its patient way, moves when it must, and survives. It has been doing so for a very long time. That fact alone is worth sitting with for a moment. Most of what we think of as active animal life, the kind that hunts, swims, responds to its environment, has eyes and muscles and a nervous system, requires meaningful quantities of oxygen to sustain itself. The chemistry of movement, of nerve signals, of digestion, of the basic maintenance of a living body runs on oxygen. Remove it and the machinery slows, then stops. The vampire squid has found a way to keep the machinery running on almost nothing. The first part of that solution is metabolic. The vampire squid has an extraordinarily low metabolic rate. Its body, at rest, demands very little. It does not run hot. It does not maintain a constant internal temperature that requires constant fuel. It does not grow quickly or reproduce in bursts that cost enormous energy. It exists at a slow, careful pace, spending as little as possible, conserving what it has. Its metabolic rate is among the lowest recorded for any active cephalopod, and possibly among the lowest for any active invertebrate of comparable size. Low metabolism is not the same as inactivity. The vampire squid can move. It can respond. It can extend its filaments, alter its posture, pulse its fins, and produce light. But it does all of these things at a cost so reduced that what would exhaust another animal barely registers here. It is the difference between a fire that burns through wood quickly and a slow coal that holds heat for hours on almost nothing. The vampire squid is the coal. The second part of the solution lives in its blood. Most animals with blood use hemoglobin to carry oxygen through the body. Hemoglobin binds to oxygen where it is abundant, in the lungs or across the gills, and releases it where it is needed. This system works well when oxygen is plentiful. But the vampire squid does not use hemoglobin. Like other cephalopods, its blood contains a different molecule entirely, hemocyanin. Hemocyanin is copper-based rather than iron-based, which is why cephalopod blood is blue rather than red. But the vampire squid's hemocyanin is not simply the same as other cephalopods' versions. It has been shaped by evolution to bind oxygen with unusual affinity, meaning it can pick up oxygen even when very little is available. Where another animal's blood chemistry would fail to capture oxygen, from the thin dissolved supply around it, the vampire squid's blood chemistry still finds purchase. It gathers what little there is, holds it, and uses it. There is something almost philosophical in that detail. The vampire squid's blood is, at the molecular level, better at finding oxygen in scarcity than most blood is at finding it in abundance. It has been tuned for a world of lack, and in that tuning, it has become capable of something that seems like it should not be possible. Even at the level of blood, life does not follow one plan. It keeps finding new answers to the same old problem of staying alive. The gills contribute as well. The vampire squid's gill surface area is proportionally large relative to its body. More gill surface means more contact between the blood and the surrounding water, which means more opportunity to extract whatever oxygen exists. This is not a dramatic adaptation. You would not look at the vampire squid and immediately see it. But it is there, quiet and functional, doing its work in the dark. The body has been shaped across generations into something that maximizes capture and minimizes waste in every system at every scale. Cold water also helps, though not through any effort of the animal itself. Cold water holds dissolved gas more efficiently than warm water does. At the depths where the vampire squid lives, the water is very cold, often just a few degrees above freezing. That cold helps maintain whatever small quantity of oxygen exists in solution. The animal did not create this condition, but it has adapted to depend on it. Its whole existence is calibrated to a world where the temperature, the pressure, the chemistry, and the darkness all align in a particular way, and where that alignment, strange as it seems, is exactly what the animal needs. There is also the matter of what the vampire squid does not do. It does not chase fast prey. It does not engage in prolonged pursuits that would drive its muscles into oxygen debt. It does not fight in ways that require explosive bursts of effort. Its defensive behaviors, which are remarkable in their own right, are designed to be brief and efficient rather than sustained and costly. Almost every behavioral choice the vampire squid makes, whether or not it would be described as a choice in any meaningful sense, points toward the same outcome: spending less, needing less, surviving on less. This is a different kind of fitness than the kind we often imagine. Fitness, in the evolutionary sense, simply means being well suited to the environment in which one lives. The vampire squid is extraordinarily fit for a world of scarcity. It has not won by being stronger or faster or more aggressive than its neighbors. It has won by needing so little that it can live where there are almost no neighbors at all. The oxygen minimum zone is, in this sense, not a hardship for the vampire squid. It is a shelter. Few predators can follow it there. The depths are cold and dim and oxygen poor, and most animals that would prey on a soft-bodied creature of this size cannot sustain themselves in those conditions long enough to be a consistent threat. The vampire squid has not simply tolerated a difficult environment. It has used that difficulty as a wall. It has placed itself behind a barrier that most of the ocean's hunters cannot cross, and it lives quietly on the other side. That reframing is worth holding for a moment. What looks from the outside like a harsh and marginal existence, a life squeezed into a thin layer of depleted water, surviving on almost no oxygen, moving slowly through the cold dark, is, from the inside, something else entirely. It is a life of unusual safety, a life of low competition and low predation, a life shaped by constraint, yes, but protected by those very constraints. The oxygen minimum zone is where the vampire squid is least vulnerable, not most. Weakness and shelter can be the same thing, depending on where you are standing. The depth of the ocean is not uniform. The oxygen minimum zone varies in thickness, in intensity, in its exact chemical character from one ocean basin to another. In some regions, it is hundreds of meters thick, in others, thinner. In the Eastern Pacific and parts of the Arabian Sea, it is particularly pronounced, so depleted that almost nothing else can live there in sustained numbers. These are the places where the vampire squid is most reliably found. It does not move through these layers randomly. it tends to stay within a range of depths that corresponds to where the oxygen is at its lowest and where, consequently, the shelter is most complete. It is not simply drifting wherever currents take it. It is positioned. It has, in a very real sense, chosen its place in the water column. Or rather, evolution has shaped it to find that place and remain there. Because remaining there has, generation after generation, been the strategy that works. And it works quietly. There is no struggle visible in the vampire squid's relationship with its environment. No gasping, no straining, no visible effort to survive conditions that should be impossible. It simply drifts, fins moving in their slow rhythm, body dark and still in the dim water, blood doing its patient work at the molecular level, metabolism ticking over at its careful, unhurried rate. The water around it holds almost no oxygen. The vampire squid holds enough. That is all it needs. There is something very restful in that image if you let yourself settle into it. An animal that has arrived, through millions of years of patient change, at exactly the right relationship with its environment. Not conquering it, not struggling against it, simply fitting it, the way water fits the shape of whatever holds it. The cold, dark water presses in from every direction, thin in oxygen, heavy with pressure, and the vampire squid is at home in it, completely, quietly, without effort or complaint. The gills move. The blood moves. The fins make their small corrections in the current. And the animal continues, as it has continued for a very long time, in the place that is exactly right for what it is. And once we understand the water it inhabits, the next impossibility appears in the body itself, which seems to answer to more than one branch of the cephalopod family tree. The vampire squid is the only living member of its own order, not its own species, not its own genus or family, its own order. A category so large that it contains, for comparison, every squid you have ever heard of, or every octopus. The vampire squid sits alone in a taxonomic space that could have held thousands of relatives. It does not. It holds only this one animal, drifting in the dark water, carrying a body plan that belongs to no other living thing. That aloneness is worth sitting with for a moment. Most animals we study have cousins, close ones, species that share enough structure to make comparison easy, to illuminate what a particular feature is for, to show the range of ways a body plan can be expressed. The vampire squid has none of that. Whatever branched away from the main cephalopod line to produce it, only this one form survived. The rest of the branch is gone, preserved in fragments of ancient stone, if it is preserved at all. What remains is the animal itself, still alive, still drifting. A single surviving answer to a question evolution asked hundreds of millions of years ago. Its order is called Vampiromorphida. There is only one species within it, Vampiroteuthis infernalis. And the reason it requires its own order becomes clear the moment you try to place it anywhere else. Place it among the squids, and something is wrong immediately. Squids have 10 appendages, 8 arms and 2 longer tentacles, distinct in structure and purpose, used for capturing prey. The vampire squid has 10 appendages too, but 2 of them are nothing like squid tentacles. They are thin, pale, thread-like filaments that retract almost completely into small pouches near the base of the arms. They are not used for hunting. They extend slowly into the water, sometimes reaching lengths greater than the animal's own body, drifting outward like a question asked into the dark. Their purpose is different, and their structure is unlike anything a squid uses. They are not tentacles in any meaningful sense. So, the vampire squid is not a squid. Place it among the octopuses, and something else is wrong. Octopuses have 8 arms. The vampire squid has 8 arms too, webbed together along much of their length in a dark, cloak-like membrane. The web is real. The arm count is right. And yet the 2 retractile filaments are simply not present in any octopus. Octopuses do not have them. No octopus ever described has anything like them. They are a feature that exists only here, only in this animal, belonging to a body plan that walked its own path. So the vampire squid is not an octopus either. What it is, instead, is something older than the distinction. The cephalopod family tree splits, at some point in deep time, into 2 great lineages. One leads to the squids and cuttlefish. One leads to the octopuses. The vampire squid appears to have diverged before that split fully resolved, or perhaps at its earliest edge, carrying features from both sides because the sides had not yet become fully separate. It is not a missing link in the dramatic sense. It is something quieter and stranger, a surviving form from a time when the categories we use had not yet hardened into the shapes we recognize. Its 8 webbed arms suggest proximity to the octopus line. Its 2 filaments, distinct, retractile, unlike arms, suggest something of the ancestral condition that eventually gave rise to squid tentacles, though the relationship is debated and not straightforward. Its internal structure includes a small reduced gladius, a stiff internal remnant of what was once a full shell. Squids have a gladius too, a thin, transparent quill running through the body that provides some structural support. Octopuses have lost theirs entirely. The vampire squid still carries one, reduced and quiet, a structural memory of a more armored past. It is not enough to make the animal a squid, but it is enough to suggest that the vampire squid never fully traveled the path that octopuses did, never gave up that last remnant of ancient structure. What makes this remarkable is that the body does not read as confused. It reads as coherent. Every feature works together in the low oxygen, low light, low energy world where this animal lives. The webbed cloak between the arms is not a partial structure, something half evolved and not yet finished. It is complete, functional, and elegant, a membrane that can be spread wide or drawn upward to envelop the body, depending on what the moment requires. The filaments are not vestigial remnants of something that once worked better. They are active, in use, extended into the water as part of a feeding strategy that works precisely because it costs almost nothing. The gladius provides quiet structural support in a body that needs to move through pressure gradients without rigid scaffolding. Each feature has found its place. The body is old, but it is not outdated. This is the deep strangeness of the vampire squid's taxonomy. It is not a primitive animal in any dismissive sense. It is a refined one. Whatever its lineage preserved from an earlier time, it preserved selectively, keeping what worked, modifying what needed modifying, arriving at a form that has persisted, apparently without dramatic change, for a very long time. The fossil record of cephalopods is difficult to read cleanly. Soft bodies do not preserve easily. But related forms, extinct vampiromorphid-like animals, appear in rocks laid down during the Jurassic period, and possibly earlier. That is not a number that fits comfortably inside human imagination. It is simply very old. The web, the arms, the dark body, the strange filaments. Some version of this configuration has been moving through deep water for longer than most animal groups we commonly think of as ancient. And yet, there it is, still. The arms themselves deserve a moment of quiet attention. 8 of them, connected by the cloak-like web along most of their length, lined on their inner surfaces with soft, fleshy spines called cirri. Not suckers, as most people imagine when they think of cephalopod arms. Not the round adhesive cups of an octopus or the toothed suckers of a squid. Cirri, soft projections, flexible and dense, covering the inner arm surface in 2 rows. They are sensitive, almost certainly used for detecting texture and movement, and they may play a role in handling the particles of organic matter the animal gathers from the water. They are gentle instruments for a gentle life. The web between the arms is deep and continuous. When the arms are held outward and spread, the web stretches between them like an open umbrella or a cape held wide. When the arms are drawn upward and inward, the web folds over the body, enclosing it, creating a shape that looks almost like a bell. This transformation is part of the animal's defensive repertoire, which will be explored in more detail later. But the structure that makes it possible, that continuous, elastic, deeply pigmented membrane, is one of the vampire squid's most defining features. No squid has anything like it. Only the most web-armed of octopuses come close, and even then the comparison is imprecise. The filaments remain the strangest part. They emerge from small pockets, one on each side, tucked near the base of the arms. In a resting animal, they are nearly invisible. Extended, they can reach lengths of several body lengths. Thin, pale threads, drifting out into the water with no obvious muscular urgency, trailing in whatever slow current exists at depth. They can be withdrawn again, reeled back into their pockets in a motion that is gradual and unhurried. No cephalopod alive has anything comparable. Whatever evolutionary logic produced them, it produced them only here, only in this lineage, and only in this surviving form. Some researchers have proposed that the filaments are homologous to the tentacles of squids, meaning they share a common ancestral origin, even if their current form and function are quite different. Others are less certain. The honest answer is that the filaments are difficult to place with confidence, because placing them requires understanding a lineage that no longer has living representatives to compare. The vampire squid is its own only reference. It cannot be clarified by looking at its cousins, because its cousins are all gone. That is a strange kind of isolation. Not the isolation of an animal pushed into a remote habitat by competition or misfortune. The isolation of a lineage that simply outlasted everything that shared its branch. The vampire squid did not win any race. It persisted. The others did not. And now it drifts alone in its taxonomic space, carrying a body that is a composite of features no other animal currently expresses in quite the same combination. There is something almost archival about it. The body holds information that the fossil record cannot easily provide. The way the filaments attach, the way the web is structured, the way the cirri are arranged. These are details that stones cannot preserve, but that the living animal carries forward intact into the present. Scientists studying cephalopod evolution look at the vampire squid not just as an interesting species, but as a document, a record of a body plan that might otherwise be entirely lost. And the animal itself is indifferent to all of this, of course. It drifts where it has always drifted, in the cold and the dark and the thin air of the oxygen minimum zone, extending its filaments into the water, drawing them back, settling into the dim middle distance of the midnight ocean. It does not know what it is in any categorical sense. It does not know that it is alone in its order, or that its body confuses the taxonomy, or that it carries structural memories of an older ocean. It simply is what it is, completely, quietly, without remainder. That completeness is its own kind of answer, not to a question the animal is asking. To the questions we bring to it, looking in from outside, trying to understand where it fits. And the answer the body gives is patient and consistent. It fits here, in this water, in this depth, in this particular configuration of arms and web and filaments, and ancient reduced shell. It fits in the way that things fit when they have been doing so for a very long time. Not because the categories accommodate it, because the animal was here before the categories were. The shape of the body tells one story, but the face it turns toward, darkness, tells another. One written in vision, shadow, and very small amounts of light. The vampire squid's eyes are the largest, relative to body size, of any animal on Earth. That is not a casual claim. It holds up against every known species, fish, bird, mammal, invertebrate. Proportionally, nothing else comes close. An individual vampire squid might be no longer than your forearm, and yet its eyes can reach nearly a centimeter across. Scaled to a human body, that would place eyes the size of dinner plates on either side of the face. The comparison sounds absurd, but the animal is built around them, the way a cathedral is built around its windows. Everything else organized to admit and honor what the opening receives. What makes this proportion so striking is not just the size itself, but what it reveals about the animal's relationship to its environment. Eyes that large are expensive. They require tissue, maintenance, blood supply. Evolution does not keep expensive things without reason. The vampire squid carries those eyes because in the midnight zone, where almost no sunlight penetrates, even the faintest trace of light is worth detecting. The eyes are not an excess. They are a response, a careful, costly, ancient response to a world that offers almost nothing to see. Sunlight does not reach the vampire squid's home, not in any meaningful way. Below roughly 600 meters, the last blue-green traces of surface light dissolve entirely. The water is not dim. It is not twilight. It is genuinely, completely dark. The kind of dark that has no gradient, no horizon, no variation. A human placed in that water would see nothing at all. Not shapes, not shadows, not even the faint impression of their own hand. And yet the vampire squid sees. Not color, most likely. Not fine detail in the way a hawk or a human sees detail. But it detects contrast, movement, and, most crucially, light. Specifically, bioluminescent light. The midnight zone is dark, but it is not without illumination. It is threaded constantly with the cold glow of living things. Flashing lures, warning pulses, the soft green trails of disturbed plankton, the slow blue blink of a fish that does not know it is being watched. In that world, eyes like the vampire squid's are not oversized. They are exactly right. That is the wonder pivot hidden inside the eye itself. The organ was not shaped by sunlight. It was shaped by the light of other animals. The vampire squid does not look at the world. It looks at the living signals that move through the dark, and reads them the way a reader reads a page. The vampire squid's body is dark red, almost the color of dried blood, though in the depths that color is invisible. Red is a curious choice for a deep-sea animal, and it is not unique to the vampire squid. Many creatures of the midnight zone are red or deep crimson. Shrimp, fish, jellies, worms. The reason is optical. Red wavelengths of light are the first to be absorbed as sunlight descends through water. By the time you reach even moderate depth, red light is gone. In the deep sea, a red body is functionally black. It reflects nothing. It absorbs whatever faint bioluminescent light might strike it without giving back a signal that a predator could detect. The vampire squid is not hiding in the obvious sense. It is not tucking behind a rock or burrowing into sediment. It is hiding in plain sight, in open water, by wearing a color that the physics of the ocean makes invisible. The dark red body is camouflage so elegant it requires no behavior at all. The animal simply exists, and the water does the concealing. And yet, and here the strangeness deepens, the vampire squid also glows. Scattered across its body are small light-producing organs called photophores. They are not rare. Bioluminescence is extraordinarily common in the deep ocean, far more common than most people realize. Estimates suggest that the majority of deep-sea animals produce some form of biological light. The vampire squid is among them. Its photophores appear along the edges of its fins, near the tips of its arms, and at the ends of its retractile filaments. When stimulated, they emit a soft, diffuse, blue-white glow. The control the vampire squid has over this light is remarkable. It can pulse the photophores, dim them, brighten them, and extinguish them entirely. The light is not an accident of chemistry. It is a tool, one that can be deployed or withheld depending on what the animal needs in a given moment. That raises an immediate question. Why would an animal so committed to invisibility also carry light? The answer, as with most things in the deep sea, is layered. Bioluminescence in the midnight zone serves many purposes depending on the species: attracting prey, confusing predators, communicating with others of the same kind. For the vampire squid, the photophores appear to function primarily as a distraction and a misdirection. When threatened, the animal can produce a burst of light that draws attention to its edges and extremities, and then suddenly extinguish it, leaving a predator oriented toward where the light was, while the animal itself has quietly moved somewhere else. Light, in this case, is not a beacon. It is a decoy. The vampire squid uses visibility as a form of disappearance. It glows in order to vanish. There is something else the photophores may do, and it is one of the stranger ideas in deep-sea biology. Some researchers have proposed that bioluminescent organs along the ventral surface, the underside, of certain deep-sea animals serve a function called counter-illumination. The idea is this. From below, looking upward, any animal in the water column appears as a dark silhouette against whatever faint residual light filters down from above. That silhouette is visible. It is a target. Counter-illumination means producing light from the underside that matches the intensity of the ambient light from above, effectively erasing the silhouette, making the animal invisible to anything looking upward. Whether the vampire squid uses its photophores this way is not fully confirmed. Its photophore distribution is consistent with the possibility, and the logic fits. An animal that lives in the dim transition zone between total darkness and the faintest traces of downwelling light would benefit from being able to disappear from both directions. Dark from above, lit from below, invisible from everywhere. This is not camouflage in the way we usually imagine it. It is not pattern or texture or color matching a background. It is the active manipulation of light, generating precisely the right amount to cancel out the animal's own shadow. It is physics used as invisibility, and it is one of the more quietly astonishing things any animal has managed to do. The eyes see, the body hides, the photophores glow and deceive. These three systems do not work independently. What the vampire squid has developed across its long evolutionary history is a sensory and visual ecology that treats light as a medium to be managed rather than simply received. Other animals see light. The vampire squid negotiates with it, absorbing it, producing it, cancelling it, redirecting it, depending on what the moment requires. That negotiation is possible partly because of another feature of the vampire squid's eye, its extreme sensitivity. The retina is packed with photoreceptors tuned to dim conditions. The pupil can open very wide. The eye is built for gain, for amplifying whatever signal arrives, however faint. This is the same principle that makes large, telescope mirrors more powerful than small ones. More surface area captures more signal. The vampire squid's eyes are, in a sense, biological telescopes pointed into the dark. And what they are looking for most of the time is not prey in the conventional sense. The vampire squid, as later sections will explore, does not hunt. It drifts and collects. But it still needs to see, to detect approaching threats, to read the bioluminescent signals of neighbors, to navigate the slow geography of the water column. The eyes are not hunting tools. They are awareness tools. They keep the animal oriented in a world that offers almost no external reference points at all. Imagine drifting in water so dark that the only things visible are the occasional cold flashes of other living things. In that world, your eyes become everything. Your ability to detect a sudden pulse of light 50 meters away, to distinguish it from the slow ambient glow of a drifting organism, to recognize it as a warning or a threat, is the difference between being safe and being found. The vampire squid lives in that calculation constantly. Every photon is information. Every flash is a sentence in a language the animal has been reading for hundreds of millions of years. And then it goes still. It dims its own light. It holds its dark red body in the dark red water. And it waits, patient and nearly invisible, its enormous eyes open, its filaments extended, its whole body tuned to the faint and flickering grammar of the deep. There is a particular kind of calm in that image, if you sit with it long enough. An animal so precisely fitted to its world that it becomes part of the texture of it, not fighting the dark, not struggling against the pressure or the cold or the scarcity of oxygen. Simply present and adapted and almost perfectly hidden in a place that hides almost everything. The vampire squid does not experience its eyes as remarkable. It does not know that it holds a record. It simply sees what there is to see in the only ocean it has ever known, with the only eyes it has ever had. The wonder belongs to us, looking in from outside. The dark is full of small lights, and somewhere in it, an animal the size of your forearm drifts with its enormous eyes open, reading them all, and giving almost nothing back. And when a body is not built for pursuit or sudden force, survival depends on a different kind of invention altogether. Most cephalopods escape danger the way we might expect, fast. A squid can accelerate through open water by expelling a jet of pressurized fluid, reaching speeds that make pursuit costly for almost anything chasing it. An octopus can vanish into a crevice in less than a second. Speed and concealment, ink and confusion. These are the familiar tools of the shallow water cephalopod, shaped over millions of years in environments where energy is available, where prey is abundant, and where the cost of a fast response can be recovered quickly. The vampire squid lives in a different economy entirely. In the oxygen minimum zone, where the water barely holds enough dissolved oxygen to keep an active animal alive, speed is not merely inconvenient. It is nearly impossible to sustain. A jet-propelled escape would require a metabolic surge the vampire squid cannot afford. The oxygen simply is not there to power it. That constraint, which might seem like a fatal disadvantage, has instead produced something stranger and more interesting. A defensive toolkit built almost entirely on illusion, posture, and the precise conservation of effort. The most dramatic defense the vampire squid possesses is also the one that requires no movement at all. When threatened, the vampire squid can turn its webbed cloak inside out. The web, which normally hangs between its arms and gives the animal its characteristic silhouette, can be pulled upward and over the body in a slow, deliberate motion until the arms fold back and the animal becomes something unrecognizable. The spiny projections on the inner surface of the arms, small, soft, and pale, point outward. The body is now enclosed. The familiar shape is gone. This posture is called the pineapple position, though that name does not quite prepare you for what it looks like. The animal becomes a rounded, spiny form with no obvious head, no obvious orientation, and no obvious vulnerability. It is not fast. It does not need to be. It simply becomes something else entirely. And in the deep sea, where most predators navigate by shape and silhouette, and the faint bioluminescent signatures of their prey, becoming unrecognizable may be enough. What makes this extraordinary is not the posture itself, but what it reveals about the relationship between form and function. The webbing that allows the vampire squid to glide and drift slowly through the water is the same structure that becomes its shield. One body part, two uses. The cloak is both sail and armor, depending on what the moment requires. That kind of dual-purpose design speaks to something deep about how life economizes. Not by building separate tools for every situation, but by finding structures that can transform. The pineapple posture is not the only thing the vampire squid produces in a moment of threat. From the tips of its arms, the vampire squid can release a cloud of glowing mucus. This is not ink, not in the way a shallow water squid or octopus deploys it. The vampire squid's secretion does not simply obscure. It glows. Bioluminescent, persistent, a blue-green light that lingers in the water long after the animal has moved away. Imagine what that looks like from the perspective of a predator in the dark. A shape appears. Then suddenly, a cloud of soft light blooms where the shape was. The animal is gone. What remains is something glowing, something that looks alive, something that holds attention, while the vampire squid drifts quietly in the other direction. The mucus can persist for several minutes, long enough for a predator to investigate it, lose interest, move on. Long enough for the distance between hunter and hunted to become meaningful without a single burst of Speed. The vampire squid has, in effect, left behind a decoy made of light. It has turned bioluminescence, a feature we might associate with signaling, with communication, with the subtle lantern work of the deep, into misdirection. That is a remarkable thing. It means the same physiological capacity that produces the photophores dotting the vampire squid's body, that powers the faint glow at the base of each fin, has been adapted into something entirely defensive. Light is not just for seeing or being seen. It is for confusing, for escaping without fleeing. There is a third layer to this toolkit, and it is the subtlest of all. The vampire squid can alter its posture in ways that change how much of its dark surface is visible. The body is deep red, nearly black, a color that absorbs the faint downwelling light from above and produces almost no silhouette when viewed from below. That was covered before. The way the body itself is a kind of visual disappearance. But the animal can also shift between orientations, tucking or extending different surfaces, depending on the direction from which threat seems to come. This is not a dramatic behavior. There is no sudden transformation, no burst of motion. It is more like a slow, deliberate adjustment, the way a person in a dark room might turn slightly, becoming narrower, less present. The vampire squid does not vanish. It simply becomes harder to resolve into a recognizable shape, harder to track, harder to commit to as a target. And then, if none of that is sufficient, the animal can still jet. It can still move through the water with muscular effort, but it does so rarely, and the evidence suggests it does so reluctantly. Jet propulsion is the last resort, the emergency measure, the response to a threat that has already gotten too close. The rest of the toolkit exists, so that moment is rarely reached. There is something worth sitting with in that arrangement. Most animals we tend to think of as well defended have their defenses as their first and most obvious feature. The porcupine presents its quills. The skunk raises its tail. The threat display comes first, and escape comes after, if needed. The vampire squid has inverted that logic, or at least complicated it. The most energetically costly response, flight, is held in reserve. The cheaper responses come first: posture, illusion, light. The animal tries to solve the problem without spending what it cannot easily recover. That is not timidity. It is calibration. It is a body that has learned over immense stretches of time to treat energy as the most precious resource it possesses. More precious, perhaps, than speed or aggression or the raw capacity for force. In the oxygen minimum zone, energy is genuinely scarce. Every joule spent on escape is a joule not spent on staying alive, on reproduction, on the slow business of existing in a place that barely supports existence at all. The defenses of the vampire squid are, in this sense, a direct expression of its environment. They did not develop in spite of the low oxygen water. They developed because of it. The constraint shaped the solution. Scarcity drove invention. And the result is an animal that survives not by being stronger or faster than its threats, but by being more patient, more efficient, and more difficult to understand. There is one more detail that belongs here, and it is easy to overlook. The vampire squid is not known to produce ink at all. This is unusual. Ink is among the oldest and most conserved defensive tools in the cephalopod lineage, a chemical and visual screen that has been found in fossilized cephalopods from hundreds of millions of years ago. ink sacs have been preserved in specimens from the Jurassic. The capacity is ancient, deeply embedded, nearly universal among the group. The vampire squid appears to have lost it. Or more precisely, it appears to belong to a lineage that diverged before ink became a standard feature, or one in which the ink sac was reduced and replaced over time by something more suited to its particular world. The glowing mucus is not ink. It does not obscure. It does not confuse through darkness. It confuses through light, which is a fundamentally different strategy, and one that makes more sense in an environment where there is no ambient light to block. This is a small thing, in one way, the absence of a single organ. And yet, it is a window into how completely the vampire squid has been shaped by its environment, how thoroughly the deep oxygen minimum zone has left its mark on every system in this animal's body. Not just its blood chemistry, not just its metabolic rate, but its defenses, its responses to threat, its relationship with the concept of escape. Even the way it protects itself speaks of the dark, quiet, resource-thin world it inhabits. So, the vampire squid moves through its dim water carrying a set of tools that are, in almost every respect, the opposite of what we might expect from a cephalopod. No ink, no fast escape as a first resort, no aggression, no striking posture designed to intimidate. Instead, a cloak that becomes a shield, a light that becomes a decoy, a silhouette that becomes a question mark, a stillness that is, underneath, a form of extraordinary sophistication. The animal is not passive. Passivity suggests indifference, a kind of giving up. What the vampire squid demonstrates is something more considered than that. It is an animal that has weighed the cost of every response and arranged its defenses in order of what they ask of the body. The cheapest come first. The most expensive are saved. That is a kind of intelligence, even if it is not the kind we usually name. It is the intelligence of a body that has found the exact shape of its own limits and built a life inside them, not despite the constraints, but through them. The darkness holds the vampire squid. The low oxygen shapes it. The scarcity teaches it. And the animal, over millions of years, has learned to answer every one of those teachings with something quiet, something sufficient, something that costs almost nothing and works almost every time. It drifts on, patient, strange, enough. Once the drama of defense settles, a quieter truth comes into view. This so-called vampire survives not by taking violently from the sea, but by receiving what the sea slowly sends down. The name carries weight it has not earned. Vampiroteuthis infernalis, vampire squid from hell, suggests a predator, something that hunts, something that strikes. And so for a long time, that is what researchers assumed it must do. It had the body of a cephalopod. Cephalopods eat. They chase and catch and consume. The logic seemed to follow, but the logic was wrong. What the vampire squid actually eats is more surprising than anything the name implies. It gathers marine snow. Marine snow is not a metaphor, though it sounds like one. It is a real and constant phenomenon in the ocean. A slow, continuous fall of organic material drifting downward from the surface layers into the deep. Dead phytoplankton, discarded mucus from filter feeders, fecal pellets from creatures living far above, shed exoskeletons, fragments of tissue, cells that were alive an hour ago and now drift in loose aggregates through the dark water, descending on a journey that may take days or weeks before they settle on the seafloor far below. In the sunlit upper ocean, this material is produced constantly, and all of it falls. In the ocean's upper layers, much of this material is intercepted before it travels far. Bacteria break it down. Small animals eat it mid-descent. The water column is full of mouths, and most of what falls is consumed long before it reaches any significant depth. What survives the journey down through hundreds of meters of increasingly dark and cold water is what arrives in the oxygen minimum zone. It is dilute. It is dispersed. It is not much, not by the standards of the shallow sea. But it falls without stopping, and it falls everywhere, and it has been falling for as long as the ocean has existed. And the vampire squid has learned to live on it. That word, learned, is not quite right, of course. Evolution is not learning in the way a person learns, but it captures something true about what happened over a very long time. The vampire squid's body came to fit this food source the way a key fits a lock. Its low metabolism means it does not need much. Its efficient circulation means it can persist on what would starve a more active animal. Its life in the oxygen minimum zone means it occupies a layer where other predators rarely venture, and where marine snow arrives relatively intact, having already run the gauntlet of the more populated waters above. Everything about this animal is shaped for a kind of life that most cephalopods never developed. The life of a patient collector, waiting in the dark for what drifts down. Researchers confirmed this only relatively recently by examining the gut contents of vampire squid specimens and finding not the remains of fish or shrimp or other active prey, but aggregated marine snow, mucus, detritus, the same slow-falling material that surrounds the animal constantly, sifting through the water in the dark. It was not the diet anyone expected. It remains, in some ways, difficult to fully imagine. A cephalopod, with all its behavioral complexity, its nervous system, its remarkable senses, living not as a hunter, but as a gatherer of what the sea discards. There is something worth pausing on here. The vampire squid shares a lineage with animals known for their intelligence, their problem-solving, their capacity for rapid adaptation and active pursuit. Octopuses open jars. Cuttlefish plan ahead. Squids coordinate in schools. And here, in the same broad family of animals, is a creature that has gone in an entirely different direction. Not toward more complex hunting, but toward the patient harvesting of particles too small to see individually. The cephalopod body plan, it turns out, can be an answer to almost any question the deep sea asks. This is one of the quieter ones. The mechanics of how the vampire squid gathers marine snow are tied closely to its filaments. Those two long retractile threads that extend from beneath its webbing and reach out into the surrounding water. The next section will follow those filaments in detail. But even here, in understanding what the food actually is, the filaments matter. They are coated in fine hairs, and those hairs are coated in a mucus that is sticky in a specific and useful way. When a filament drifts through the water, marine snow particles cling to it. The filament is then drawn back inward, and the collected material is transferred to the arms, compressed into a small mucus-bound package and consumed. The whole process is slow. It is quiet. It requires almost no burst of energy. It is exactly the kind of feeding behavior that makes sense for an animal living in a place where oxygen is scarce, and every calorie spent must be worth spending. What this means, ecologically, is that the vampire squid occupies a role almost no other cephalopod fills. It is not a predator in the traditional sense. It is closer to what biologists call a detritivore, an animal that feeds on dead or decaying organic material. This places it in a different part of the food web entirely, not as a hunter of living things, but as a processor of what life has already used and released. In shallow water, this role is often filled by worms, sea cucumbers, certain crustaceans. In the deep midwater, the vampire squid is one of the few animals capable of intercepting marine snow before it reaches the bottom. That is a specific and important function. It is not dramatic. It does not involve pursuit or struggle or the quick violence of predation. And yet it is, in its way, essential. The ocean is full of these roles. Every ecosystem requires its collectors and its recyclers as much as its hunters. The deep sea, where energy is so scarce that nothing can afford to be wasted, depends on them perhaps more than anywhere else. Marine snow is a slow but enormous transfer of energy from the sunlit surface to the lightless depths. Everything that participates in moving that energy along, intercepting it, processing it, being consumed in turn, is part of a chain that connects the surface ocean to the sea floor in ways that matter for the chemistry of the entire planet. The vampire squid, drifting through the dark, gathering particles on its sticky filaments, is one small but real link in that chain. And there is something calming in that image, if you let it settle. Not the drama of a hunt, not speed or strategy, or the predator's patience before a strike. Just an animal suspended in cold, dark water, its filaments drifting, outward, gathering what falls. The ocean sends things down slowly, continuously, and the vampire squid receives them. It has been doing this for a very long time, millions of years by some estimates, in forms closely related to the one alive today. The marine snow was falling then too. The same slow descent, the same dark water, the same patient gathering. The relationship between this animal and its food is older than almost anything we can easily name. It is worth thinking about what the vampire squid does not do. It does not chase. It does not ambush. It does not compete for territory around a food source, because its food source is not a fixed location. It is everywhere, all the time, drifting through the same water the animal already inhabits. There is no rival to displace. There is no prey to outrun. There is only the slow fall of the ocean's discards and the animal suspended within it, taking what comes. This is a way of living that requires a particular kind of trust in the environment, or rather, a particular kind of fit with it. The vampire squid does not struggle against its world. It is shaped so precisely for its world that struggle is mostly unnecessary. That is a different kind of survival than the one the name suggests. The name promises violence and hunger and the darkness weaponized. The reality is closer to patience, to reception, to a life organized around what is already there, already falling, already enough, if you are built in exactly the right way to receive it. The vampire squid is built in exactly the right way. By the time the water around it has grown fully still, the gathering continues. The filaments drift. The particles cling. The animal hangs in the dark, neither hunting nor hiding, simply present in the water that surrounds it, doing the slow and ancient work of taking in what the sea offers. There is no urgency in it. There is no tension. There is only the quiet commerce between a creature and its environment, conducted in the cold and the dark, far below the world most of us will ever see. And that quiet commerce, repeated over and over in the dim layers of the ocean, adds up to something the whole sea depends on, something the chemistry of the deep depends on, something that has been happening in one form or another since long before there were words for any of it. The vampire squid gathers, the ocean provides, the dark holds both of them, patient and vast, and the marine snow keeps falling. To live on what drifts down through darkness, it helps to become exquisitely sensitive to the smallest passing trace. The vampire squid's 2 retractile filaments are among the strangest structures in the deep ocean. They are not arms. They are not tentacles in the way a squid's tentacles are tentacles. They belong to their own category, preserved in this one animal from somewhere deep in cephalopod history, with no clear equivalent anywhere else in the living world. Each filament is extraordinarily long, in some individuals several times the length of the body itself. They extend and extend and extend, trailing out into water that is cold and dark and very nearly still. Most of the time, they are coiled away, tucked into small pockets at the base of the web, kept close to the body, invisible. The animal drifts with nothing showing of this capacity. Then, when the moment is right, one or both filaments unspool into the surrounding water, slowly without sudden motion. And the vampire squid becomes something else, a sensor reaching outward into the dark. What it is reaching for is not prey in any conventional sense. We have already spent time with the marine snow, the drifting particles, the slow organic rain that descends from the surface world. The filaments are the instrument through which that food is found. They trail through the water column, passive and patient, waiting for the smallest contact. A particle, a fragment, a piece of matter too small to see, but not too small to feel. The surface of each filament is covered in fine sensory hairs, tiny structures, microscopic, distributed along the entire length. They detect contact. They detect chemical traces. They respond to the faintest disturbance in the water around them, to the passage of something drifting close. The filament does not grab. It does not snatch. It registers. It notices. And that noticing is transmitted inward to a nervous system that is already running very quietly, spending as little as possible waiting for exactly this kind of signal. That is worth pausing on. The filament itself is passive, but it is not inert. It is a long, trailing instrument of extraordinary sensitivity, a wire extended into the dark, tuned to receive information from a world that offers very little of it. In a place where there is almost nothing to see, and almost nothing moving through the water with any speed or force, the ability to detect the faintest chemical trace or the lightest physical contact becomes the difference between finding food and finding nothing. The filament is not dramatic. It is precise. When contact is made, the process of gathering begins. This is where the arm crown and the mucus-secreting structures along the arms become important. The food particle, or cluster of particles, since marine snow often arrives in small aggregations, is drawn toward the arms, coated in mucus, and formed into a small bolus, a compact bundle of gathered material. This was covered in the previous section, and what matters here is the sequence that leads to it. The trailing filament, the moment of detection, the slow withdrawal, the transfer. The whole process is unhurried. There is no urgency in it. There is only the patient logic of an animal that has calibrated every motion to spend as little energy as possible while missing as little food as possible. What makes this calibration so remarkable is that the filament can extend to such lengths without becoming a liability. A long, trailing structure in open water is a vulnerability in most contexts. Something that could be grabbed, something that could snag, something that requires energy to move. But the vampire squid's filaments are retractile. They can be withdrawn quickly if needed. And in the oxygen minimum zone, where predators are scarce and the water is very nearly still, the risk of trailing something long and sensitive is low. The environment itself makes the strategy viable. The tool fits the place. It is also worth considering the filament's relationship to the vampire squid's other senses. We have already spent time with those large eyes, among the largest relative to body size of any living animal, and the way they gather the faintest available light in near total darkness. In that same darkness, the filaments extend outward in a different direction, gathering not light, but touch, not vision, but chemistry. The animal is perceiving the midnight water through multiple channels at once, each one tuned to a different kind of signal. The eyes look outward for the rare photon, the distant bioluminescent flash, the slow movement of something large. The filaments trail for the silent passage of something tiny and close. These are not redundant systems. They are complementary ones, and there is something in that complementarity worth lingering with. We tend to think of perception as being organized around a primary sense. For most animals, the sense that provides the richest and most immediate information about the world. But in the oxygen minimum zone, no single sense is sufficient. Light is almost absent. Sound carries differently at depth. Chemical signals are diffuse. So the vampire squid perceives through accumulation. A little light, a little chemistry, a little touch, all of it gathered and integrated into a picture of the surrounding water that is sparse but workable. Not rich, workable. That is enough. The retraction of the filament, when it happens, is smooth. Not fast in the way a squid's tentacle strike is fast, that explosive millisecond extension that catches fish or shrimp in open water. This is a different kind of motion, a slow coiling back, a drawing inward of whatever the filament has gathered or encountered. The vampire squid does not have the musculature for speed, and it does not need it. Its prey does not flee. Marine snow does not accelerate away. The food falls at the pace of falling, and the animal gathers at the pace of gathering, and the two speeds are matched to each other in a way that requires no hurry from either side. There is a word in the study of animal behavior, foraging efficiency, that describes the ratio of energy gained to energy spent in the act of finding and acquiring food. For most predators, improving foraging efficiency means becoming faster, more accurate, more powerful, better at catching things that are trying not to be caught. For the vampire squid, improving foraging efficiency has meant something almost opposite. It has meant becoming slower, more patient, more sensitive to small signals, more willing to wait. The filament trailing in the dark is the physical expression of that strategy, an investment in sensitivity rather than speed, in detection rather than pursuit. Imagine the filament extended fully, reaching into water where the only light is the occasional dim glow of a distant bioluminescent organism, where the temperature hovers just above freezing, where the pressure is immense and the oxygen is barely present. The filament drifts. The vampire squid drifts with it, nearly motionless, its fins making the smallest possible adjustments to keep it oriented. Nothing is happening in the way that nothing happening in deep water looks like. No drama, no chase, no visible event. And then, contact. Something drifting past has touched the filament. Something too small to see has left a chemical trace on its surface. The nervous system registers it. The arm crown begins to move. The mucus glands begin their work. And a small, quiet transaction takes place in the dark. Food gathered, energy replenished, the balance maintained for a little longer. That is the whole of it. That is the life. And it is easy, from the outside, to look at that life and see only limitation. The small prey, the slow motion, the narrow world, the darkness without end. But that reading misses what the filament actually represents. It is not a compromise. It is a solution. A long, sensitive, retractile, energy-efficient solution to the problem of finding food in a place where food is scattered, light is absent, and spending energy carelessly means dying. The filament is elegant in the way that very old solutions to very hard problems are elegant. Not because they look impressive, but because they work. The vampire squid may extend its filaments many times in a single day, or it may extend them only a few times, depending on conditions, on how much marine snow is currently falling through its layer of water, on how recently it has eaten, on what its body requires. There is no fixed schedule. There is no hunting ground. There is only the water around it, and the filaments reaching into that water, and the slow accumulation of what the dark provides. Over time, over the long, quiet hours of a life lived in the oxygen minimum zone, those accumulations add up. The animal grows slowly, as deep-sea animals tend to grow. It lives a long time relative to its size, as deep-sea animals tend to live. It reproduces carefully, investing in fewer offspring with more energy each, as deep-sea animals tend to do. And through all of it, the filaments extend and retract, gathering the falling world one small particle at a time. There is something almost meditative in that rhythm. The extension, the waiting, the gathering, the return. Not urgent, not anxious, simply responsive to what is there and patient with what is not. The vampire squid does not search. It receives. It opens itself to the dark, and the dark slowly provides. The filaments coil back into their pockets. The animal drifts. The water is still. The marine snow continues its slow descent from the world above, that distant, lit, busy world that the vampire squid has never known and does not need. Everything it requires is here, in the dark, falling gently toward it. It needs only to wait, and to feel, and to gather what arrives. That is enough. That has always been enough. And from these fine, careful motions, a larger pattern begins to appear. One small animal balanced delicately within an enormous system. The vampire squid does not simply exist in the deep ocean, it participates in it. Every drift, every extended filament, every slow gathering of marine snow connects it to currents and cycles and flows that reach from the sunlit surface all the way down to the sediment far below. It is a small animal, palm-sized, weightless in the water column, unhurried in almost everything it does. And yet, its presence in the ocean is not incidental. It is woven in. The first thing to understand about that participation is movement. Not the dramatic movement of a chase or an escape, but the slow, daily movement that most animals in the midwater perform without fanfare. Vertical migration. The vampire squid does not hold perfectly still in the oxygen minimum zone at all hours. It shifts. The evidence for this is still accumulating, still being pieced together from limited observations and the indirect record of what has been found in stomachs and sampling nets. But what is known suggests a life that moves in quiet rhythms, responding to pressures that are ancient and reliable. During the day, the vampire squid tends to remain deep. The oxygen minimum zone is its shelter, not comfortable by any ordinary measure, but safe in a particular way because few predators can follow it there. The scarcity that makes the zone so demanding is precisely what makes it protective. An animal willing to pay the physiological cost of living in near-anoxic water earns something in return, a kind of solitude that speed alone could never purchase. As night falls above, conditions in the water column shift. Predators that hunt by light find the darkness harder to exploit. And the vampire squid, like many midwater animals, may rise slightly, not to the surface, not into the warm, bright water, but upward along its own quiet gradient, where food may be more available and the energy cost of gathering it somewhat lower. Then, before light returns, it descends again. The cycle is not dramatic. It is patient. It is the kind of movement that leaves almost no trace. What makes this vertical rhythm worth contemplating is what it means for the ocean as a whole. Every animal that rises at night and sinks by day is doing something the ocean depends on. It is carrying material, carbon, nitrogen, the chemical residue of consumed food, from one depth to another. This is called the biological pump, and it is one of the ways the deep ocean stays fed, and one of the ways the ocean manages carbon across geological time. The vampire squid, by living where it lives and moving as it moves, is a small part of that pump. Its body, its feeding, its presence in the water column all contribute to a flow of material that the ocean has relied on for far longer than this particular animal has existed. It is a strange kind of importance, not the importance of apex predators or ecosystem engineers, but the quiet importance of a participant, a thread in the fabric rather than the hand that holds it. The animal's neighbors in this zone are, for the most part, similarly adapted to scarcity. Lanternfish, bristlemouths, certain species of shrimp and copepods that also make the daily vertical journey. The vampire squid is not at the center of a web of dramatic interactions. It is not hunting these animals, and it is not, in most cases, being hunted by them. It occupies a position that is more like a fellow traveler than a rival or a predator. The oxygen minimum zone is a place where competition, in the traditional sense, is somewhat muted, because the conditions have already done the filtering, leaving only those species willing to accept the same difficult terms. That said, the vampire squid is not without predators. It simply has the advantage of living somewhere most of them cannot follow. Large, deep-diving animals, sperm whales, elephant seals, certain large fish that can tolerate brief excursions into low-oxygen water have been found with vampire squid remains in their stomachs. These encounters are likely rare and likely brief. The vampire squid's defenses described earlier are well suited to exactly this kind of sudden, infrequent threat. The cloak raised, the bioluminescent display, the cloud of glowing mucus. Defenses designed not for constant use, but for the moments when something larger and faster arrives from above. Between those rare moments, the vampire squid's energy budget is the quiet center of its life. it spends very little. It gathers what drifts down. It rests in the water column with minimal swimming, using its neutral buoyancy to hover without effort. Its metabolic rate is among the lowest measured for any active cephalopod. This is not a flaw or a limitation. It is a strategy refined over a very long time for making a scarce environment workable. The oxygen minimum zone offers almost nothing in terms of fuel. The vampire squid has simply learned, across its evolutionary history, to need almost nothing in return. Growth in such conditions is slow. The vampire squid does not rush toward maturity. What is known about its development suggests a gradual accumulation of size, of capability, of reproductive readiness that unfolds across months or possibly years in the cold, dim water. There are not many detailed studies of vampire squid life history. The animal is difficult to observe, difficult to keep alive in captivity, and the deep ocean does not yield its records easily. What researchers have pieced together comes from specimens collected in trawls, from rare observations made by remotely operated vehicles, and from the careful comparison of animals at different apparent stages. What seems clear is that reproduction, when it comes, is not a rapid or casual affair. Female vampire squid may carry large eggs for extended periods, brooding them, in a sense, within their bodies before releasing them. The eggs are relatively large, suggesting a significant investment in each one. This is not the strategy of an animal that produces thousands of offspring and accepts that most will be lost. It is the strategy of an animal that produces fewer, invests more, and expects a higher rate of survival per individual. In a stable, cold, food-scarce environment, that trade-off makes sense. There is no advantage in flooding the zone with young that cannot be supported. There is an advantage in producing young that are already well prepared for the specific demands of the place they are born into. After reproduction, the female vampire squid may not survive long. This, too, is common among cephalopods, a single reproductive effort at the end of a life, with the body's remaining resources poured into that final act. It is a design that seems melancholy from the outside. From within the logic of the deep ocean, it is simply efficient. Nothing is wasted. The body that sustained the eggs now returns its material to the water, where it joins the slow drift downward, becoming part of the marine snow that other animals, perhaps even other vampire squid, will eventually gather. There is a circularity to this that feels right for the place. The vampire squid feeds on what falls from above. When it dies, it becomes part of what falls from above. The ocean does not lose the material. It redistributes it slowly across depth and time in a cycle that has no clear beginning and no clear end. This is the vampire squid's role in carbon cycling, made concrete. Every particle of marine snow it gathers and incorporates into its body is carbon that has been removed from surface waters and sequestered at depth. When the vampire squid eventually sinks, or is eaten and its predator sinks, or its waste sinks, or its eggs sink, that carbon moves further down into the ocean's long memory. Some of it will stay there for centuries. The vampire squid is not managing this process. It is simply living in the way that it lives, in the place that it lives. The carbon cycling happens as a consequence, and yet the consequence is real, and it matters, and it connects this small, soft animal to the chemistry of the entire ocean, and through the ocean to the chemistry of the atmosphere, and through the atmosphere to the climate of the planet. a palm-sized animal, a slow life in the dark, and a thread that runs all the way to the surface of the world. It is worth sitting with that for a moment. Not because it is surprising exactly. The ocean is full of such connections, hidden in the biology of animals that most people will never encounter. But because it is easy to look at the vampire squid and see only the strangeness, the name, the cloak, the dramatic posture, the glowing mucus. These are the things that catch attention. They are not the things that explain why the vampire squid matters to the ocean it lives in. What matters, in that quieter sense, is the slow feeding, the patient hovering, the gradual accumulation and eventual release of material that the deep ocean has been cycling for longer than this species has existed. The vampire squid is not special because it is strange. It is special because it is exactly what its environment required, and because it arrived at that fit through a long, slow process of refinement that left it precisely suited to a place most life cannot reach. That precision is its own kind of beauty. Not the beauty of color or motion or dramatic scale, but the beauty of fit. Of belonging to a world so completely that the world has made room for you in its deepest workings. That is a quiet thought. It does not ask for much. It simply settles, the way things settle in still water, finding their level without hurry, without effort, resting where they belong. The deeper we look into its habits, the more this animal begins to feel not only unusual in the present, but very old in its way of solving life. Not old in the way that things become worn or diminished. Old in the way that certain solutions become so complete, so well fitted to their conditions, that they simply continue. The vampire squid carries a body plan that was shaped long before the oceans looked the way they do now, long before the continents had settled into their current positions, long before the creatures we think of as ancient had even appeared. And it is still here, in the dark, gathering marine snow with its filaments, drifting in water with almost no oxygen, doing what it has always done. That is a kind of time that is difficult to hold in the mind. Cephalopods as a group are old, older than the fish, older than the forests. The earliest cephalopod ancestors appear in the fossil record more than 500 million years ago, shelled creatures navigating shallow seas in a world that would have been unrecognizable to us. Over time, the lineage diversified into extraordinary forms, some coiled in elaborate shells, some enormous, some fast, some slow, and through all of it, certain fundamental designs persisted. The body organized around a central mantle, the arms arranged around a central mouth, the nervous system concentrated and capable. These are old arrangements. They have been tested across an almost incomprehensible span of time. The vampire squid sits in a particular branch of that long history. It is not a squid, not an octopus, but something that diverged from the lineage before those two groups fully separated. A living remnant of an older cephalopod way of being. In the language of taxonomy, it occupies its own order entirely. There is nothing else alive that is quite like it. And yet, it is not exotic in the sense of being fragile or improbable. It is, in fact, one of the more stable presences in its environment. It has endured. That stability is what makes it worth sitting with. What does it mean for a body plan to persist across hundreds of millions of years? It means, in part, that the solutions it carries are genuinely good ones, not perfect in some abstract sense, Good in the specific sense of being adequate to the conditions that surround them. The vampire squid's low metabolic rate, its efficient blood, its tolerance for oxygen that would render most animals unconscious, these are not recent innovations. They are the preserved results of selection working across deep time, refining and retaining what continued to function. The animal is, in a sense, a record of what worked. Every part of it has been tested, discarded if insufficient, kept if not. What remains is what remains. And the deep sea has been, in this sense, a kind of archive. The midwater zones where the vampire squid lives are extreme environments: cold, dark, pressurized, oxygen poor. But that very extremity has made them stable. The conditions that make them inhospitable to most life also make them resistant to the rapid changes that periodically reshape shallower ecosystems. Mass extinction events that reshaped surface life left traces in the deep, but the deep itself persisted. Cold, pressurized, dim, waiting. Animals adapted to those conditions had somewhere to endure. The vampire squid's lineage may have found refuge in that stability, surviving in the dark while other branches of cephalopod life diversified into the bright, competitive waters above. There is something quietly remarkable about that. The ocean floor and its adjacent depths have functioned as a kind of slow museum, not of frozen forms, but of living ones, continuing to function and adapt in ways that are smaller, more gradual, less dramatic than the evolutionary turbulence of more accessible waters. The vampire squid did not stay the same across all this time. No living thing stays exactly the same. But it retained the essential structure of what it is, because what it is kept working. Imagine the sheer volume of change that has occurred around this animal's lineage while it continued. Continents have moved. Oceans have closed and opened. Entire groups of organisms have appeared, flourished, and vanished entirely. The dinosaurs rose and disappeared. The first whales walked on land and then returned to the sea. Ice sheets advanced and retreated. The oxygen content of the atmosphere shifted. The chemistry of the ocean itself changed across geological time. And through all of it, something like the vampire squid continued to drift in the dark water, extending its filaments, gathering what fell from above, carrying ancient arrangements of protein and pigment and nerve through an ocean that was, in all these ways, always changing around it. That is not triumph. It is not drama. It is simply persistence, which may be the quietest and most profound form of success that life can achieve. When we think about survival, we often picture active struggle, competition, flight, aggression, the fast and the clever outrunning the slow and the simple. But the vampire squid suggests a different image: survival through fit, through matching the conditions so precisely that the conditions themselves become shelter. The low oxygen zone that excludes predators is not a hardship to be overcome. It is the environment the animal is built for, and being built for it is what has kept it here. The deep sea did not challenge this animal and find it sufficient. The animal and the environment shaped each other across time until one was the answer to the other. That kind of belonging is rare. It is also very old. There is a word sometimes used in evolutionary biology: relict. A relict species is one that has persisted from an earlier time, surviving in conditions that once may have been widespread but are now limited, while related forms have changed or disappeared around it. The vampire squid is sometimes described this way, and the word carries a kind of weight. It suggests something preserved, something that has outlasted the context that produced it, still functioning in the present through qualities shaped in a very different past. But relict can sound like remnant, like something left over, and that framing misses something. The vampire squid is not a leftover. It is not a form that failed to change and has merely persisted through luck. It is an animal that is, right now, living a complete and functional life in a specific environment that it occupies with genuine precision. It gathers food. It reproduces. It moves through the water and responds to its world. It is not a museum piece. It is a participant. The fact that its body plan is ancient does not make it less present, less alive, less itself. It simply means that what it is has had a very long time to become very well suited to where it is. And in that, there is something worth resting with. We tend to think of time as something that accumulates change. More time means more difference. But the deep sea reminds us that time can also accumulate fit. That given the right conditions, time allows a form to become more and more precisely itself, more and more exactly suited to the place it inhabits, until the distinction between the animal and its environment begins to soften. The vampire squid is not separate from the cold, dim, oxygen-thin water it inhabits. It is, in a sense, made of that water, shaped by it, continuous with it in ways that took hundreds of millions of years to develop. That is a long time to become something. And yet, here it is, still drifting, still gathering, still carrying forward the ancient arrangement of its body through dark water, as it has in one form or another for longer than we can easily picture. The ocean around it has changed. The world above has changed beyond recognition. But in the still cold dark of the oxygen minimum zone, something very old continues to find what it needs and persist in the quiet way that very old things sometimes do. Not loudly, not urgently. Simply by being exactly what it is, in exactly the place it belongs. And perhaps that long history invites an even quieter thought about how often appearance and nature drift apart. The vampire squid was named before it was understood. That is worth sitting with for a moment. The name came first, from researchers who saw the dark cloak, the red eyes, the webbing drawn between the arms like something from an old story about the night. They named it for what it looked like. And then, slowly, over decades of patient observation, a different animal emerged from beneath that name. Not a predator, not a hunter of living things. Something quieter and, in its way, more remarkable. This is not unusual. It is, in fact, a very human pattern. We encounter the unfamiliar and we reach for the nearest familiar thing. We find a fish with a lantern growing from its head, and we call it an anglerfish, emphasizing the hook. We find a creature with long, trailing arms, and we call it a sea spider. Though it is not a spider at all, we find a small, dark cephalopod drifting in the black water of the deep sea, and we call it the vampire squid from hell. The name reaches for drama, because drama is what we know how to hold. The strange becomes manageable when it is dressed in a story we already carry. And yet, the animal beneath the name keeps living its own life, indifferent to what we have called it. The vampire squid does not know it is frightening. It does not perform its cloak, its darkness, its stillness as threat. These things are simply what it is, a shape that has worked for an extraordinarily long time in a place where working is difficult. The darkness of its body is camouflage and warmth conservation. The cloak is shelter and a surface for bioluminescence. The eyes are tools for gathering what little light exists in a place where light is almost nothing. None of it is for us. None of it is aimed outward in the way a name suggests. That gap between what something looks like and what it is one of the quieter truths the deep sea keeps offering. Down there, in the oxygen-thin water, drama of appearance does not correlate with drama of life. The most theatrical-looking animals often lead the most patient, most economical, most restrained existences imaginable. The vampire squid, in its dark cloak, drifts. It extends a filament. It gathers what falls. It waits. It does this slowly, quietly, in the cold, in the dark, in water that barely holds enough oxygen for a candle. Nothing about its daily existence matches the name it carries. And there is something gentle in that mismatch once you settle into it. Not ironic, not amusing in the way that contrasts can be amusing. Gentle, because the animal itself is gentle. It is soft-bodied, careful with its energy, patient in a way that suggests not anxiety, but ease. It has found a way of living that asks very little of the world around it, and in return asks very little of itself. Drift, gather, rest, wait. These are not the verbs of a creature from a horror story. They are the verbs of something ancient and settled, something that has been doing this for so long that doing it has become effortless. The restraint is the point. The quietness is the adaptation. What makes this worth contemplating is not just the mismatch between name and nature, but what that mismatch reveals about the limits of first impressions. We are extraordinarily good at reading surfaces. We have had to be. An animal that looks threatening may be threatening. A space that looks dangerous may be dangerous. Reading the surface quickly and correctly is something evolution has spent a very long time teaching the minds of animals, including ours. That speed is useful. It has kept many things alive. But the deep sea keeps handing us cases where that speed fails entirely. Down there, the usual rules of surface reading dissolve. Darkness is not emptiness. Stillness is not death. A dark, cloaked creature with glowing eyes is not a predator. A soft, slow animal drifting through water with almost no oxygen is not dying. It is thriving in its own careful way, in the only way available to it. The deep sea is a place where almost every first impression is wrong, and where the second look, the patient one, the one that waits and watches and asks different questions, is the one that begins to approach something true. The vampire squid rewards exactly that kind of looking, not the fast look that says dark, dramatic, frightening, but the slow look that notices how it moves without urgency, how it gathers without chasing, how it holds its shape in the water with a kind of ease that suggests not effort, but belonging. The slow look notices that the cloak, when wrapped around itself, becomes not armor, but comfort. That the bioluminescent glow scattered along its body in soft patterns is not a lure for prey, but something subtler, a tool for managing its own visibility in a world where visibility is complicated. The slow look arrives at something like tenderness. That is perhaps the strangest word to arrive at when thinking about an animal called the vampire squid from hell. And yet, it fits. There is something tender about a creature so perfectly adapted to its narrow world that it needs nothing more than that world provides. Something tender about a life organized around patience and economy, and the slow gathering of what falls. Something tender about an animal that defends itself, not by fighting, but by wrapping itself in its own soft darkness and waiting for the danger to pass. Tenderness does not require softness of appearance. It does not require that something be small or colorful or familiar. It lives, sometimes, in the very places we least expect it. There is also something worth sitting with about the history of misunderstanding itself. The vampire squid was not named maliciously. The researchers who encountered it were genuinely astonished by what they saw. The name came from real wonder, real surprise, a real encounter with something no one had expected. The mistake was not in being astonished. It was in letting the astonishment settle too quickly into a story. The familiar story of the deep sea as a place of monsters, of creatures shaped by darkness into something threatening. That story is very old. It is, in some ways, comforting. It gives the unknown a shape. It says, out there, beyond what we can see, things are dangerous, and we are right to keep our distance. But the vampire squid, drifting in its quiet layer of the ocean, gathering marine snow with a filament extended into the dark, does not belong to that story. It belongs to a different one. A story about persistence, about finding the one place where you fit so precisely that fitting becomes easy, about a life so finely tuned to its environment that the environment and the animal begin to seem like two expressions of the same thing. That story is harder to name quickly. It does not condense into a dramatic label. It asks for time, and time, in the end, is what the deep sea offers more than anything else. Time and darkness, and the slow descent of things from the world above. The vampire squid has lived in that time, in that darkness, for longer than we can easily imagine. It has not changed much because it has not needed to. The deep ocean has been patient with it, and it has been patient with the deep ocean. And somewhere in that mutual patience, something has endured that might otherwise have been lost. An animal that looks like a myth, that lives like a monk, that carries in its body an ancient solution to an ancient problem, and drifts through the cold water, wearing it without drama, without effort, without any awareness of how strange it looks to eyes like ours. Let that drift with you now. The mismatch between surface and depth, the gap between the name and the life, the quiet truth beneath the dramatic form. These are not contradictions to resolve. They are simply the shape of a particular existence, in a particular ocean, in the particular dark. And they are, in their way, restful, because they suggest that understanding does not always come quickly, and that what waits beneath the surface, when we have the patience to look, is often far gentler than we first imagined. From there, the animal almost dissolves into its environment, and the environment begins to feel like a lesson in another way of existing altogether. The oxygen minimum zone is not a place most animals can enter. It sits in the middle depths of the ocean, not the shallows, not the true abyss, but somewhere between, a dim and pressurized layer where the water holds so little dissolved oxygen that most creatures would falter within it. It is not a hostile environment in the way that heat or acid is hostile. It is simply a place where the ordinary terms of survival become difficult to meet, where the usual strategies run out. And yet, something lives there, something soft and dark and ancient, moving slowly through the near-dark trailing filaments in the stillness, gathering what the ocean lets fall. What the vampire squid has done is not dramatic. That is what makes it worth sitting with. It did not develop armor. It did not grow faster or develop powerful jaws or evolve into something aggressive and difficult to kill. It found a layer of the ocean where those qualities were largely unnecessary, where the real challenge was simply metabolic. How to keep living on very little. How to use what was available with extraordinary care. And then it became, over a long span of time, precisely suited to that challenge. Not by overcoming the limits of its environment, by fitting inside them. That is a different relationship to limits than the one we tend to imagine when we think about survival. There is a version of survival that looks like conquest, the animal that outcompetes, that expands, that dominates. We recognize this version easily. It has a shape we understand. But the vampire squid suggests another version, one that is harder to see and perhaps harder to name. Survival as fit rather than force. Existence shaped not by what an animal can overpower, but by what it can precisely, quietly match. The low-oxygen water is not a prison the vampire squid tolerates. It is a home the vampire squid inhabits more completely than most animals inhabit anywhere. Consider what that means. The very conditions that exclude competitors, the scarcity, the pressure, the dim light, the cold, are the conditions that make the vampire squid's life possible. They are not obstacles, they are architecture. The environment that seems most limiting is the one that has made this particular form of life most secure. There is something in that worth turning over slowly. We tend to think of limits as things to transcend. The vampire squid has done something different. It has settled into its limits the way a body settles into rest, not fighting the shape of the space, but finding ease within it. The ocean is full of environments that look, from the outside, like places where nothing should be. The Hadal trenches, miles deep, where pressure would crush most structures. The hydrothermal vents, where water emerges superheated and rich with chemicals that would be toxic to most life. The oxygen minimum zone, where the water itself seems to offer almost nothing. And in each of these places, life has found a way not through resistance, but through correspondence. Not despite the conditions, through them, shaped by them, answering them so precisely that the conditions and the creature become difficult to separate. The vampire squid and the oxygen minimum zone are, in some sense, one thing described from two angles. That is a strange idea. But it may be true of all living things, if you look carefully enough. Every animal is partly a description of its environment. Every body carries the record of the pressures that shaped it. The deep-sea fish with enormous eyes is a record of darkness. The camel is a record of heat and dryness. The vampire squid, with its slow metabolism and specialized blood and quiet, drifting life, is a record of what it means to live in a place with almost no breath. To look at the animal is to see the ocean it inhabits. To understand one is to understand something true about the other. There is a word in ecology, niche, that tries to describe this relationship. An animal's niche is not just the place it lives, but the role it fills, the precise configuration of conditions it needs, and the precise contribution it makes. The vampire squid's niche is narrow in the way that a key fits only one lock. But narrow does not mean fragile in the way we might assume. The vampire squid has held that niche for a very long time. The specificity of its fit is not a vulnerability. It is a kind of mastery, and the ocean in its vastness has room for many such specificities, many such precise fits. The breadth of life on Earth is not made of generalists alone. It is made, in large part, of creatures that found one particular set of conditions and matched themselves to it so completely that they became irreplaceable within it. The vampire squid is one such creature, one answer to one very particular question. The question the oxygen minimum zone asks is something like, can a soft body with no bones and no great speed live here in the cold and the dark and the near breathless water and find enough? The vampire squid answers, yes, quietly, slowly, over and over for millions of years. That answer has required nothing spectacular, no great drama, no visible struggle, only an extraordinary correspondence between what the animal needs and what the environment provides, and between what the environment demands and what the animal has become. In the dim water, the vampire squid drifts. Its filaments extend into the stillness. Marine snow descends around it, slow as dust in still air. The animal collects what falls. It breathes what little oxygen the water offers. It moves when it must and rests when it can. Its body runs at a pace that seems, from the outside, almost like pause. And this is enough. This has always been enough. There is something restful in that, not because it is simple, the physiology involved is anything but because the relationship between the animal and its world is so complete that there is no remainder, no waste, no excess expenditure in one direction that requires compensation in another. The vampire squid is not straining toward anything. It is not trying to be elsewhere. It is entirely, specifically here. We are not built like the vampire squid. We cannot live in the oxygen minimum zone. We cannot slow our metabolisms to near stillness and drift through cold, dark water, gathering what falls. The comparison is not meant to be literal, but there is something in the image worth borrowing. The idea that limits can be inhabited rather than overcome. That a life shaped by scarcity can still be full in its own terms. That efficiency and stillness and patience are not lesser strategies, not the tactics of the weak, but genuine solutions arrived at through long time and careful fit. The vampire squid does not know it is remarkable. It does not experience its own survival as a philosophical statement. It simply continues, in the dark, in the cold, in the thin and quiet water, drifting and gathering and waiting with the particular patience of a creature that has never needed to hurry. But we can sit with what it suggests. We can let the image of it settle into the mind the way marine snow settles through the water column, slowly, without urgency, finding its place by descent rather than direction. Something soft, in the dark, in a place with almost no breath, living completely. The thought does not need to go anywhere. It can simply rest there, in the quiet, the way the animal rests. Suspended, still, held gently by the pressure of the deep. And now we stop knowing and simply become. The water holds you. It has always held you. This is not something you think about. It is simply the condition of existing, the cool, faint pressure from all directions, equal and constant, the way the dark is equal and constant. You are suspended in it the way a thought is suspended in the moment before sleep, without effort, without anchor, without any particular reason to be higher or lower than you are. You are at depth. The right depth, not too shallow where the oxygen thins in a different way, where light begins and pressure drops and the world becomes strange with warmth and exposure. Not too deep, where even this adapted body would feel the cold differently. Here, in the middle dark, the water is exactly what it should be. You know this, not because you have checked. You know it because nothing is wrong. The body only registers its environment when something is off. Right now, nothing is off. There is only the still, blue-black column of water, and you drifting in it, and the faint sensation of being perfectly placed. Your mantle is soft. The fins along its edges make tiny, almost imperceptible adjustments. Not swimming, not quite. Something slower than that. A continuous small negotiation with the water, a series of corrections so minor they barely register as movement. You are not going anywhere in particular. You are being in a place. That is enough. Something is falling. You become aware of it the way you become aware of most things here. Gradually, at the edges of sensation. A faint disturbance in the water ahead of you. Something descending, slowly through the column. Marine snow. A fragment of something that was once something else, now drifting down from the world above, traveling through layers of dark water, taking a long time to arrive at anything. Your filaments are already open. You did not decide to open them. They simply are open as they often are, extended out into the surrounding dark, trailing, sensing, patient. One of them finds the edge of the falling particle. There is information in that contact, not language, not thought. Something more immediate than either of those. A kind of knowing that happens before knowing happens. You draw the filament slowly inward. There is something there, barely. A small accumulation, a particle with a coating of something organic, something that was once living, now part of the slow rain of material that moves through the water column without hurry and without direction. You bring it toward you. The filament curls. The arms, arranged around the base of your body, receive it. There is something like tasting, something like deciding, and then it becomes part of you, and the filament extends again, drifting outward, and the waiting resumes. This is the work. This is what the day is. The filaments open. Something arrives. The filaments draw it in. The filaments open again. There is no urgency in any of it. Urgency is expensive. You are not built for expensive. Your eyes are open. They are almost always open. They are very large, much larger than the rest of you would seem to require. And they gather what little light exists at this depth. There is not much. There is almost nothing. But almost nothing in a place this dark is not the same as nothing. There are faint, sourceless glimmers from time to time, bioluminescence from something passing at a distance, a brief, cold flash, a pulse, a trail. You see it. You register it without alarm. It is far away. It is moving in a direction that is not toward you. It fades. The dark settles again. Your body is the color of the dark, a deep, dark red that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. In the faint blue wavelengths that penetrate this deep, you are nearly invisible. Not because you are hiding exactly, because you are simply the color that fits here. The color that the deep ocean makes of animals that stay long enough. You are part of the dark the way the dark is part of you. There is no separation between the two that would be useful to name. At the base of your mantle, something glows faintly. You are not doing this deliberately. The light organs along your body produce their quiet output, a slow luminescence that is not a beacon and not a signal exactly, or not only a signal. It is part of the balance, part of the way you exist in a space where light can be both danger and tool, where being seen from below is different from being seen from above, where the right kind of faint glow can make you disappear against the faint glow of whatever filters down from above. The light is small, it is calm, it is continuous and unremarkable, like a breath. You drift. Something changes in the water, not a sound, not quite a movement, a pressure difference perhaps, or a change in some quality of the current, something that arrives through your skin before it arrives anywhere else. The fins along your mantle still. The filaments retract smoothly, without haste, pulling inward until they are almost nothing, almost invisible, tucked away. Your arms draw slightly inward. Your web, the dark cloak that connects them, shifts. You wait. Whatever it was, it is not coming closer. The pressure difference settles. The water returns to its ordinary stillness. Nothing follows. You are still for a moment longer than necessary. Not from fear. Fear is a word from a different kind of life, from something simpler, from the fact that stillness costs almost nothing, and moving costs something, and so stillness is the default always, the position the body returns to when there is no reason to do otherwise. The filaments drift outward again, slowly. The weight resumes. Time passes in a way that has no edges. There is no light to mark it, no warmth that rises and falls, no horizon that changes color. There is only the water and the slow rain of particles through it, and the filaments that find them, and the drawing inward and the opening again. This is not monotony. Monotony is what happens when something is expected to be different and isn't. This was never expected to be different. This is simply what existing is here in the midnight zone. A continuous, unhurried relationship with the dark and the falling world. Something arrives on the filament. You draw it in. Something else falls nearby, and you adjust, barely, a small tilting of the fins, a slight repositioning, and the filament finds it. You draw that in too. Your body asks for very little, and the water gives it, slowly, consistently, without drama. The transaction is quiet. It has been quiet for a very long time. The water is still. The filaments are drifting, open, but there is nothing falling nearby at the moment. Nothing on the filament. Nothing pressing for attention. The eyes are open, but there is nothing to see. No distant glimmer, no passing shape, no brief, cold pulse of light from somewhere else. There is only the dark and the equal pressure from all directions, and the faint, continuous work of the fins, and the body floating in the water, the way a thought floats in the moment just before it dissolves. You do not need to move. There is nowhere to be. The water holds you as it always holds you, without effort, without condition, without asking anything back. The depth is right, the temperature is right, the oxygen is thin as it always is, but your blood is built for this. Your blood carries what it needs to carry, slowly, steadily, without strain. Your heart finds its pace, slow, patient, almost geological. The filaments drift. Something is falling. Somewhere above you, far up in the water column, a particle has begun its long descent. It will take time to arrive. It will pass through layers of dark water, drifting, slowing, changing slightly as it falls. By the time it reaches you, it will be something different from what it was. Everything that arrives here is something different from what it was. That is what the falling does. You are not thinking about this. You are simply here. The fins make their small adjustments. The body floats. The eyes are open in the dark. The filaments settle. They are still extended, but barely moving now. The water around you is quiet. Nothing is falling close enough to register. The eyes are open, and there is nothing to see, and that is not wrong. That is simply the dark being the dark, being what it has always been, being the condition of this place and this depth and this particular way of being alive. Your arms are still. Your web is still. Your body is still. The water holds you. You are suspended in the midnight zone, in the thin oxygen and the cold and the dark, in the place where the pressure is equal from all sides and nothing is required, and the day has no edges, and the night has no edges, and there is only this, the floating, the drifting, the slow, buoyant pause at the center of a life that asks very little and needs very little, and has everything it needs. The filaments drift. The dark is full and quiet. You rest in it, soft and still, exactly where you are. And after all that strangeness, what remains is something unexpectedly peaceful. You have spent time with an animal whose name promised darkness and danger, and whose life delivered something else entirely. Something patient, something ancient, something that found a way to persist, not through force or speed or aggression, but through the quietest possible economy of being. That is what stays. Not the dramatic name, not the cloak raised in the dark water. What stays is the image of a small creature drifting in the blue-black cold, its filaments open, gathering what the ocean lets fall, and finding that enough, finding it more than enough, finding it a life. Let your jaw unclench now, if it hasn't already. Let whatever tension has gathered there simply release. You don't need to hold anything. The vampire squid is still out there, in water you will never see, at a depth the light never reaches. It is doing what it has always done, drifting, waiting, gathering, resting in the still, cold of the oxygen minimum zone, where almost nothing else can survive, and surviving there not despite the difficulty, but because it has shaped itself so precisely to that difficulty that the difficulty is no longer felt as such. It is simply home. That is a remarkable kind of belonging. To be so fitted to a place that the place stops being a challenge and becomes a shelter. Let your hands open now, soft against whatever is beneath them. The weight of your arms is easy. The weight of your whole body is easy. Darkness for the vampire squid is not an absence. It is the condition of its life, the medium it moves through, the thing that holds it and hides it and keeps it safe. There is no threat in the dark down there. There is only the slow drift, the faint bioluminescent glow, the water pressing gently from every direction at once, a pressure so familiar it is indistinguishable from stillness. You are in your own kind of darkness now, and it is the same, a shelter, a place where nothing is required. Your eyes are heavy, let them be heavy. Somewhere below the sunlit ocean, below the twilight zone, below the last traces of warmth and color, a creature that has existed in some form for hundreds of millions of years continues its slow and careful work. It does not know that it is ancient. It does not know that it is strange. It knows only the cool water, the faint pull of a particle drifting close, the ease of being suspended in a world that holds it without effort. You are held like that now, by the surface beneath you, by the dark around you, by the breath moving through you without being asked. The ocean continues, vast and quiet, in the same world where you are resting. The blue-black layers of the deep persist. The vampire squid drifts. The marine snow falls as it always has, as it always will. A slow and endless descent of everything the upper ocean releases, falling down through the dark toward whatever waits below. Nothing is required of you now, nothing at all. Your body is heavy in the way that means it has finally let go. The deep sea does not need witnesses to continue its work. The vampire squid does not need to be understood to belong to the world. It simply does, as you do, as everything does in its own way, in its own place, in its own quiet arrangement with existence. Sleep well and good night.